Hey, what's going on, everybody? How are you doing? Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope you guys are doing super good today. We are just over an hour away from the Crew-10 launch, driven by SpaceX and operated by NASA. Should be a good flight. Like I said, we are just over an hour. We completed so far in the checklist. All of the astronauts are, of course, suited up. They've driven out to the pad. They are now sitting in their seats inside of the Endurance Dragon capsule. Their chairs have been rotated back into launch position. So instead of being basically them sitting in like a chair like I am, they've now been rotated to lay more horizontally in preparation for all of the loads that they're about to experience on liftoff. And they have completed the hatch closeout. So we are, I believe at this point, about 20 minutes away from propellant loading. That should be the next major milestone, but Crew-10 is here. Weather, as far as I know, is looking very, very good. I think it's like a 95% chance of successful weather for launch. Range is looking green, and we're just kicking back and waiting. So without further ado, let's see where we are in the webcast.
Honestly, the entire way. Now, docking again is targeted for 3 a.m. Pacific, 6 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, March 13th. And just like autopilot on a commercial
About 13
aircraft,
hours,
the crew always
13-hour
has
drive to the
take
ISS.
manual control of the spacecraft if needed.
And before all of that happens, as the booster returns to the launch site and slows down from supersonic speeds, people in the immediate area may hear a brief double clap of a thunder-like sound known as a sonic boom.
You gotta love
Similar sonic booms like this
the
were heard
commentary that
during
they
the
provide.
return and landing of the space shuttle, and sonic booms like these are one of the hallmarks of reusable systems like Falcon.
Here's what some of these booster returns have looked and sounded like.
Nice. So they're going through some B-roll footage. But yeah, so this is going to be Crew-10. This is going to be the second flight of this booster. This is booster 1090 after an 85-day turnaround. I think its last mission, which was, like I said, 85 days ago, was the Orbcom mission. So that should be a second reuse or second flight for this booster. By the O3BM Power 7 and 8 mission, which is back in December of 2024. We also have a reuse on the Dragon capsule that's going to be used today. This is Crew Dragon C210, otherwise known as Endurance. And this previously flew on Crew 3, Crew 5, and Crew 7 missions. I think it's acquired over 500 days of in-space operations, and it's been somewhere on the order of like a 500-day turnaround time for this particular vehicle. I think 565 days was the last back in 2023 when we saw Crew 7. So this is the fourth flight overall for this Crew capsule. And then the crew themselves, we are carrying 4 astronauts to the International Space Station, the ISS, as part of Expedition 73. We have Anne McClain, who is from NASA, who is going to be the commander of this mission. She's very experienced. She has 2 spacewalks under her belt. She flew on Soyuz previously. We also have Nicole Ayers from NASA. She's going to be the pilot for this mission. I think this is her first mission, which is actually pretty awesome. She flew in the Air Force, I believe F-22s, which is pretty crazy. We also have from JAXA a seasoned veteran, Takuya Onishi. I think that's how you pronounce his name. From JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency. This is his, I believe, second mission into space. I think he previously flew on Soyuz as well. And then we also have Kirill Peskov from Roscosmos. So we have 2 NASA, a Japanese Space Agency astronaut, and then we also have a Roscosmos astronaut, a cosmonaut as well. So all in all, 4 crew members heading up here. Launch date, like I said, is today. We are just over an hour from flight. Launch time should be somewhere on the order of 7:48 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's going to be 2348 UTC. All out of Cape Canaveral Kennedy Space Center down in Florida from Launch Complex LC-39A. So a lot going on for this mission. Like I said, this is going to be a crew rotation, bringing up Crew-10. They're going to be relieving Crew-9. Don't forget, Crew-9 is expected to bring home Butch and Sunny. So that'll be good because they've been up there since, like June of last year. They're the astronauts that went up on the Starliner prototype flight or demonstration mission, crew demonstration mission. And unfortunately, Starliner experienced some difficulties with its thrusters, and NASA went ahead and called the shot of not bringing them back home on Starliner, which, by the way, Starliner performed re-entry beautifully. It survived and everything, but why take the chance, right? So they've been up there since June of last year, if my memory serves, and hopefully they will be returning home if weather permits. March 16th, I think, is the currently expected timeline. Expedition 73, however, this mission here with these 4 astronauts is expected to be about a 6-month stay on the International Space Station. So it'll carry them all the way through basically until early fall of this year for their return flight home. But yeah, should be a pretty good mission. We got a good looking crew here. If you guys haven't seen the crew members, yeah. Crew-10 coming off of Gulfstream. This is NASA's Gulfstream in the background that they have here. But yeah, so there is Anna McLean. She is the commander. Look at that. All business, all serious. Looks like a commander, as a commander should. This is Nicole Ayers, or Ayers. She is the pilot, also from NASA. This is Peskov from Roscosmos. And then this is Onishi from JAXA. So yeah, there in the background, you can see the Gulfstream 5 that NASA has procured since, I believe, 2016 in the background there. But that was them arriving at Kennedy Space Center ahead of their mission. And we are now touching on the 1 hour mark. Let's see if there's any update on the timeline or if they're just still going over some B footage here.
Is work with our international partners all across the world.
I think it's hard to overestimate the value of international cooperation in space exploration because we all know that it takes much time and effort.
Space is hard.
Space is hard. Yes, it is.
It's sometimes unpredictable, and that's why I think.
So that's Takuya Onishi from JAXA.
Key to success.
The International Space Station wouldn't be
There's Nicole
international
Ayers.
without all of our partners, and our goal is to be a beacon of hope for all of humankind. So that
Nice.
people can look and say, this is what we can accomplish when we work together.
Falcon 9 with Crew Dragon on it just looks really,
I asked
really nice.
Ann what she's most looking forward to, as well as Nicole, and she says it's really satisfying for her to work on hardware with her hands, then get it into the Japanese airlock, and then go see it working outside in space, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, that is one of the perks for sure. All the different things that we're doing every day, whether or not you're just being an operator or a subject for an experiment, loading up the Japanese airlock. That was one thing that we did several times during my mission where we were deploying some small satellites via that airlock. So we did all the work of configuring them and putting them through, and then we watched them shoot out and be in orbit around Earth. So really
That's
cool.
pretty cool. That's neat. And Nicole said that she's looking forward to anything that has to do with fluid dynamics because that's what she got her master's in. So looking forward to that.
I think
We
she
got
should
some
be.
social questions for you. You've been doing a great job for
I
that.
think she should be pretty happy with this flight here because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, some of the experiments that they have in store for this particular mission, I think on the ISS they're expected to handle like over 200 flight experiments, which is pretty crazy. Everything from material flammability studies, microgravity effects, of course, on the human body is always one that NASA's interested in continuously doing as they rotate astronauts to and from the International Space Station. They want to do in-space communication and navigation tests. I think this is still a follow-on from them testing some of the equipment and algorithms for basically docking Orion autonomously to the gateway system around the moon, right? The gateway station around the moon. And then they also have of course, over 6 months stay, they'll probably oversee, hundreds of scientific experiments, but the material flammability ones are always really interesting. But there it is. We are roughly 12 minutes away from go for propellant load. We should hear about the go, no go for propellant load here shortly. shouldn't really be a big deal overall, ideally. But the hatch closer was completed at around the hour and 55-minute mark. So they've been basically sitting snug in their Dragon capsule seats with the hatch closed for the last hour. The vehicle is, of course, in a very safe and stable mode right now. The only thing it's filled with is RP1. And then we should have the go for LOX fueling here momentarily as well. Actually, they might fill both LOX and RP1, but I think it's already got RP1 on board. But either way, it's still in a safe mode, whether it has RP1 or not, because what you don't want to have is a dynamic changing environment, and so you don't want to be fueling the spacecraft or changing the state of the spacecraft in any way once you have the astronauts basically not on board and strapped in. So if you guys remember Starliner on board the Atlas V that launched, basically ULA has a slightly different configuration. They actually fill the rocket fully before the crew go on board, and that might seem counterintuitive, but that's still in a safe mode. The rocket is fully fueled, not much is changing, and so they're able to basically ingress the astronauts safely and all that. What you don't want to have is like active fueling where anything can go wrong. But yeah, so SpaceX does it a little bit differently from ULA and, of course, Starliner. But we should hear very quickly about the propellant loading situation.
Yeah, so the team's been really hard at it. The SpaceX and NASA teams work.
It's difficult finding the right words when speaking another language. Great looking crew. No kidding, Fortune. No kidding. Yes, the crew does look pretty good. Here's another pic that we saw earlier.
I think we just heard them talk to the crew and give
a great looking
the
Dragon capsule.
They're still actively
patch for this mission as well.
This is a concern basically of just how the vehicle's held in place and during.
Oh, there's
release.
Anne McLean, the commander, pilot Nicole Ayers, Kirill Peskov from Roscosmos, and then there is Takaya Onishi from JAXA. So yes, definitely a very good looking crew, seasoned veterans here. And yeah, we should see it. I love that patch too. The patch looks really sick.
Yeah, so the team's looking for any issues with respect of how the performance is. They compare it to previous history. Was there anything abnormal from when we had static fire to today? And so they're off actively looking at that data, and between SpaceX and NASA teams discussing if we have a path forward and if we can continue and get resolution.
Okay. Well, Mike, why don't we let you get back on console? We know that, again, we are actively working an issue with your teammates there, so we really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Well, they're working an issue right now.
All right, guys, let us get another
we'll
update
see if it goes
with
through.
Our SpaceX counterparts and our NASA counterparts.
Like I said, they basically have until 45 for the go no go on propellant load. As far as I know, it's an instantaneous launch window, so if they don't hit that propellant loading point, they'll probably scrub for today.
Together, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy have completed more than 450 launches and over 380 reflights.
And today, the booster will be attempting to land at Landing Zone 1, which is just down the coast from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. This will be the second flight of the first stage booster supporting the Crew-10 mission.
Rapid reusability drastically reduces launch costs,
Look
helps increase launch frequency, and enables a wide array of new government, commercial, and scientific opportunities.
That's where this booster will be landing today,
Lowering
back
the
on
cost
land.
of access to space is helping take humanity's steps into the solar system, whether in low Earth orbit, interplanetary, or even deep space. When costs are lower, government and commercial customers can launch more missions, which helps accelerate development. This also helps commercial satellite and private research customers afford to launch more projects to space, which helps stimulate innovation here on Earth. All of this to say, reusability is the key innovation that is making space more accessible for the industry
as a whole. He's just chilling out. Look how relaxed he is.
Just like the first stage of Falcon 9, Dragon is also reusable.
The reusable Dragon spacecraft has flown people to the International Space Station 13 times. And as we mentioned earlier, today's crew will fly aboard the same Dragon that previously flew the Crew-3, Crew-5, and Crew-7 missions.
For more than a decade, Falcon 9 has supported 45 missions to the International Space Station with our
45,
Dragon
wow.
spacecraft,
That's
starting
crazy.
with our first cargo resupply mission, then returning human spaceflight capabilities to the U.S. and
To
even
rescue
helping
the
launch
stranded
2 additional
astronauts?
cargo
Get outta
missions
here,
with
BD.
Northrop Grumman's Cygnus.
How dare you?
All
Get
of
that-
these
get
missions
that
have
garbage
enabled
out of here.
science and research to be conducted in low Earth orbit at the International Space Station. The space station also plays a key role.
I do that to get in the zone before a race, kind of close my eyes and zone out for a minute. Oh yeah, 100%. You gotta like walk through it. They've been in there for over an hour already, right? So you got nothing to do. Pilot and commander, he doesn't even have like, any controls or anything he has to worry about. His job is literally just taking a ride into space while the pilot and commander, I mean, the whole thing is autonomous, but the pilot and commander actually have the screens and monitors in front of them to command certain things that SpaceX ground control loop is telling them to do. So yeah, I mean, he's in there for basically 2 hours, suited up, just chilling. Like, why not take a nap until it's time to launch, right?
Journey around Earth, and there you could see some of the footage from that mission on your screen. It was the first all-civilian mission to space.
An itchy
and
foot?
missions
Yeah,
like
right? That'd be a
Inspiration
bummer.
4, Polaris Dawn, and the upcoming From 2 allow commercial astronauts to conduct research and other activities in microgravity and demonstrate new technologies while orbiting Earth.
Nice. That was from
As
Polaris
some of you may
Dawn.
recall, last year the Polaris Dawn
There it
crew
is.
reached the highest Earth orbit ever flown since the Apollo program, participated in the first ever extravehicular activity, or EVA, from Dragon wearing SpaceX-developed EVA suits, and conducted 36 research studies and experiments designed to advance both human
You'll be
health
able to
on
see
Earth
the launch from
and
your
during
house?
long
Yeah, you
duration
should be able
spaceflight.
to.
All of these missions are helping.
I think somewhere around here. Do I have it over here? Yes, I do. If I can find it, stand by. I know I have it. I know I have it. There it is. This is coming from Dylan on X. But yeah, here you go. So if you're anywhere in this vicinity, you should be able to see it. Of course, later in the mission, right, is when you'll start to see it down here. But from launch, you should basically be able to see it all the way up to like North Carolina. And then based on its trajectory, where it's going northeast, you should be able to see it all the way up the East Coast just later times in the mission, just depending on what the outside weather is and things of that nature. But yeah, this is the trajectory it's going, and you can see here essentially green is not greater than 90%, orange is less than 70, and red is less than 30% chance of visibility. I don't know how he calculates that, if that's based on like weather, but yeah, you should definitely be able to see it if you're on the East Coast or even, you know, a few hundred miles inward. So that's something to look out for.
And the crew and all of the support teams go through their steps exactly
what a
how they
great
would on
shot
launch
of
day
the
to make sure that they're ready
of the
when
Falcon
we do
9 and
go
crew
for
capsule.
launch. However, during a static fire test, which we also did earlier this week, the crew is not present. Now, propellants are loaded and the engines on the boosters are fired for a few seconds while the rocket is held down to the launch mount. The data from the static fire test is then reviewed and incorporated into NASA and SpaceX's decision to proceed
Check this out,
with
chat.
launch.
This was the
And all of that hard
this was
work.
from the static fire that they were talking about. Absolutely great shot. One of the better shots I've seen them do of a static fire for their mission. So there it is. That was the that's Endurance on top. This is the actual stack that's flying right now, and that's them igniting the engines during their static fire, which is pretty awesome.
The launch director will also check in with the Dragon mission director, referred to as MD, and NASA launch manager to make sure they're ready to move forward.
Yeah, let's see
Right
what the
now,
update
the
is.
crew is on board Dragon, waiting to get the green light to stow the crew arm for launch and arm the launch escape system. Once the launch director gives the go-ahead, we should get a good view of the access arm moving away from the spacecraft. Now we're still tracking that one issue with the hydraulics, so we should hear the final decision on that before we get to that crew access arm stowage.
Yeah, so weather overall is looking great. Range is green. I think it's like a 95% chance of, you know, favorable weather at launch time. So it's basically going. They're working a ground control problem right now, though. A ground systems problem. There's a problem with one of the hydraulic systems on board. And so they're working that issue. Don't know any more than that, but we're coming up 3 minutes on go for propellant load, ideally, and the retract of the arm. So the retract of the arm has to happen before we start propellant loading. We'll have to see exactly what happens.
And there on your screen, you can see a live view of Falcon 9 and Dragon at the launch pad, Launch Complex 39A in Florida, just under 48 minutes away from launch. We've conducted several weather briefings leading up to this moment, starting with one at T-minus 48 hours a couple of days ago, proceeding into the most recent weather briefing a couple of hours ago. All of the weather continuing to look good, as Jesse mentioned. The one item they're currently tracking for weather, it would be on the abort corridor, but again, that looks pretty good at this moment.
Nice.
Again, our teams will
So like
be
I said,
staffed
weather is
around
good.
the clock and mission control to monitor Dragon.
They have 2
not
minutes
just today,
to
but
do
through
the
entire
go, no-go
mission
poll
from
on
liftoff to
fueling.
Crew-10's arrival
Then
at the
crew
space
access
station
arm
and
should
all the way
retract
through
at 42
splashdown
minutes.
when the astronauts return.
And then from there at 35 minutes, they should do propellant loading.
Coming up in about 2 minutes, we should hear
What'd I say?
that launch director
What'd I say?
briefing around the T-minus 45-minute mark. And then after that, we should hopefully have a decision on the hydraulic system, whether we are go or not, and if that's been resolved. And then after that, we will see that crew access arm stow to begin around the T-minus 43-minute mark.
Yep. So now we sit and we wait, chat. As we do, we hurry up and
as
wait.
you mentioned, Anna, all the
in
rest
the
of the
spaceflight
systems
community.
are looking really good for T0. We are just working this one issue is a ground side issue, but the vehicle is healthy, the crew is healthy. They're currently strapped into their seats inside of Dragon on top of Falcon 9 as we speak right now, patiently waiting for an update.
Yep. And once Crew-10 does get to the International Space Station, they will, of course, have a brief handover period with Crew-9. And then after that handover, once weather looks good for a splashdown, Crew-9 will return home shortly, bringing the end to their mission. So it's a busy time as we complete these crew rotation transitions at the International Space Station. Now at just under T-minus 46 minutes, so we should be coming up on that launch director briefing here shortly.
Yeah, so at T-minus 45, which is basically now, we should hear the go, no-go for fueling.
At the launch pad 39.
And then at T-minus 42 minutes, we should have the crew access arm retract if we're go. And then at T-minus 35 minutes, we should have propellant loading start. If we get past this go, no-go.
LD Dragon, go ahead.
Hey, for awareness, team needs a couple more minutes here, wrapping up this hydraulics issue. We'll get back to you in about another 4 minutes or so on the answer.
Okay.
Sudden copy, thanks.
And a quick update there. Sounds like around the T-minus 41 minute mark, we'll get an update
So
on
they're
that
pushing the
hydraulic
go,
issue
no-go.
that the teams have been working.
We'll see if they can get it figured out.
These views are great. Like Daryl said, we might have a nice twilight launch over there in Florida. So
Yeah, it should be a twilight launch if it launches
go
here.
outside during T0 for liftoff, you might get a really cool.
You don't know what twilight launch that they're referring to is? Essentially, actually, I think I have a picture of one as well here from Dylan that we saw earlier. Essentially, on the surface of Earth, it's basically nighttime. It's dark because the sun's no longer hitting it. But as the rocket ascends, it gets out of the shadow of Earth as it climbs higher and higher, and the sunlight hits it. So from Earth, it makes an amazing light show. So this is what essentially we could get tonight from the ground. This is, again, from Dylan, who showed this earlier. This is a previous mission that kind of gave us that twilight effect. And so you can see here's the second stage after separation. The sunlight just totally illuminates the gases coming off the second stage and the first stage here. These rings that you can see here, these arcs, are actually from RCS pulses that are hitting sunlight. So yeah, we can get some really, really cool shots here.
Result today, but we'll get you back up here in the air soon.
All right. Well, that sounded like what I think I just heard.
There soon. Yeah, sorry about the unfortunate result today, but we'll get you back up.
Yep, it's a scrub. Confirmed scrub. There we go, chat. Confirmed scrub, just like that.
Dragon SpaceX, you are go to start 5.100 launch scrub.
Launch scrub. All right. Well, that's that. Bummer.
Dragon 5.100 launch scrub and work.
Yep. Well, so much for that. So much for that. Interesting. So yeah, that pretty much does it then. So Crew-10 for today is going to scrub. We'll have to see when the new flight time is. I think they have a launch window tomorrow as well. Whether or not they're going to take advantage of that, we'll have to see. But yeah, guess I won't be able to see it. Yeah, I guess you won't be able to see it tonight. Yep, that's it. Yeah, better safe. Absolutely, 100% better safe than sorry.
We just get that update. Unfortunately, we are scrubbing for today's launch. Unfortunately, due to the hydraulic ground issue that the teams have been working, this will allow the teams to continue to troubleshoot and hopefully fix this issue for the next attempt that we'll have for Crew-10.
Yeah, it depends on the issue, Tay.
And there's several other attempts this week. We'll see where we end up, but there's another opportunity about 24 hours from now.
Yeah, that's what I said.
That
24 hour turnaround.
Take if that issue is addressed. So from here, the crew and the team will have to begin egress steps to get the crew out of Dragon and off the launch pad and back to their quarantine facility.
But I mean, honestly, that's got to be such a drag for the astronauts that do this. Like, if you guys remember it happening to like Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, it happened to them. I mean, it's happened, multiple times, of course, throughout the space flight for SpaceX and Crew Dragon. It's happened, I think the last one, even for Polaris Dawn, they had to scrub. It's happened a couple of times, of course. But you get, it's basically an all-day event, depending on when the launch is. If at least this one was in the afternoon, right? Some launches are in 2 in the morning, and so if you understand that you have to basically start suiting up 6 to 8 hours beforehand, so then that puts your start of your day all the way back to 2 p.m. before that launch, and then you're probably not sleeping very well the night before. I mean, at least if it's your first mission, maybe the seasoned veterans are able to sleep just fine. But you just gotta, I can only imagine, if I was in their shoes, I'd be like, oh my gosh, no, why? Yep, they scrubbed Cobra. They found a hydraulics issue on board that they have to address. So they were working the problem all the way up until basically their go no-go pull for refueling, or well, not refueling, for filling propellants. But yeah, they couldn't work the problem in time, which is unfortunate. You think they could have fixed it by then? Yeah, maybe. We'll have to see. I don't know what the issue was. I just said it was a hydraulics issue, so could be many things.
Leading up to the scrub today, they did go through lots of activities, obviously making it all the way through crew ingress, which happened around 4:58 p.m. Eastern earlier.
Yeah, they've been sitting in there for 2 hours now.
They then completed all of the suit leak checks.
And for crew awareness, proceeding into scrub site safing, expect some venting from the vehicle ACS system.
Dragon copy.
So now they're going through all what's known as safing procedures. Things are pressurized to flight pressure, essentially, or to operating pressure. They haven't necessarily filled the tanks or anything like that, but things are
continuing to hear that
pressurized, so they have to vent it down and bring everything down off power and whatnot.
And Crew-10 aboard the Dragon Endurance. With that, we'll go ahead and turn it back over to Daryl at NASA's Kennedy Space Center for some additional information.
All right, thank you very much, Jessica and Anna. Back here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Unfortunately, we're not going today, Jessica. There was an issue.
Very unfortunate.
The hydraulic system on the
I bet the 2 hours feel like 5 minutes. Probably, yeah.
39A.
It probably does.
This was an issue that involved one of the clamp arms on the transporter Rector. This is a ground issue.
Well, I could see it going either way, actually, Kine. I could see it being like, oh yeah, those 2 hours are 5 minutes, or I can definitely see it as those 2 hours were 2 days. Boosters ignition. That's right.
They were working
the same guy.
Gathering data, but continuing with the countdown in hopes that they were able to have enough data to resolve the issue or get comfortable with some flight rationale. They were unable to get to that point, but I was listening in on the nets, and
no, he's definitely not a bad host. Yeah, I like him for sure.
Thoroughly, as you would expect from the teams at SpaceX and NASA. talking about.
You think it's on the longer end? Yeah, I know, right?
Previous launches.
You're just like sitting there with anticipation with like nothing to do.
Test fire.
Especially if you're like Kirill Peskov or Takuya Onishi, the two astronauts that are not the commander or pilot, right? They haven't done anything. They don't even have a screen in front of them. Like if you were looking at Kirill earlier, Kirill was just napping. I mean, not really napping. He just had his eyes closed and stuff. If we go kind of like back further here, somewhere, don't remember where it was. Yeah, dude was just chilling. I mean, why not, right? You're sitting there for hours. You yourself don't really have anything to do. There he is. You don't have anything to do. The screen's not even like really near you. You kind of have to look up like this to see that screen. So yeah, I mean, like if you're either Onishi or Peskov, you're just kind of like, I'm just gonna take a nap. Wake me up when the flamey end goes. Depends on your thoughts. Yeah, 100%. If I started 0200 and it's 1900, I'm napping. Yeah, that's what I'm saying as well, Naps. Like, I don't really know when their day started. We know they started suiting up, what was it, like 6 hours beforehand? But, they were doing other stuff, other processing before that. Yeah, I was saying that earlier. Like, luckily, this was kind of a late in the day mission to where, if you can imagine if it was like a 2 a.m. mission, depending on how your sleep schedule was set up, you could have been awake for like 18 hours or more if you couldn't sleep before launch. So this was kind of lucky that it was at least later in the day. But yeah, I don't know exactly when their timeline starts for work, because they obviously have to suit up. I don't even know what has to happen before them suiting up. They've been in quarantine, working together beforehand. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yep, scrub-a-dub-dub. Yep, just relaxing in the Dragon capsule, 100%. The day before space is surely rough. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about it earlier, and flexibility.
Hey, keep your
seatbelt
really on
until everything that we do as astronauts. We know that the plan
until the
is
Dragon
always
capsule
changing.
comes
and
to
launch
a full stop.
Are definitely a reality that we have seen.
Yep, it was scrubbed
over
supersonic.
And over again
Scrubbed
here at
due
the
to
Space
hydraulic
Coast, way back in the
ground
era,
issue.
Of course, happened frequently too, given maybe a technical issue, maybe a violation of the range, as we talked about with a random boat being in the area. Maybe it was a weather violation, or even any of the contingency sites along the corridor as well. So lots of different reasons to abort. It does, we're ready for this. This is what we trained for. We know that at the end of the day, you may be lifting off, you may not be. Definitely a bummer for everyone involved, but we will just, again, do as we're trained and get ready for that next opportunity. So
those are the Teslas that are used to transport the astronauts to and from the their processing, their basically suit up processing area. So they're heading back out to the site. They're going to offload them with the pad ninjas and all that. Also, they're bringing the pad ninjas because the pad ninjas basically evacuated the area and all that. They're having a good time, though.
Important it is as an operator.
Got a little selfie there.
To be humble.
I bet you he's on X right now being like, didn't go.
And I think that's something that we saw here today.
They each get their own car? No, I don't think so. There were three, right? Three Teslas, if I'm not mistaken.
For every mission. We're always wondering what's
I think they usually double up. I think one is probably carrying like some of the either pad ninjas or some of like the camera people and whatnot, the reporters and whatnot. You saw 4? Oh, okay. It may have been. Here, let's go see. I don't think they got their individual ones, but I could be wrong. No, it's 3. That's a police car. 1, 2, 3 right there.
Aviation. We talked about that several times in this broadcast.
Yeah.
They have 4. It reminds me a little bit of an interview that Anne gave today. We weren't ready to launch, and the answer is that we will launch when we know we're ready and safe.
Of course.
And that's, of course,
better safe than sorry, of course.
You're launching humans into space.
It always seems like with crew missions, though. I mean, crew missions obviously have more stringent launch constraints than, say, if this was like an autonomous system. We've even seen that with ULA, right? ULA's Starliner mission. Starliner or ULA had a buzzing valve, if you guys remember that, on the Starliner demonstration. And Tori Bruno and ULA basically came out that saying like the issue wasn't really an issue, but to fix it would have violated our human launch constraints because they're stricter. So like Tori Bruno even said, had the mission been autonomous and like been flying just a normal payload, they would have just proceeded with launch and not even worried about it, but it violated their human launch constraints. So who knows? The hydraulic issue might not really be that big of an issue, but it's conservative, right?
Scrub procedures. Again, another highly detailed list.
Flight attendant said they could turn phones off of the airplane mode because of the scrub. Yeah, I like that, AK.
Properly go about the
I like that. Yeah, the boots are pretty slick. Yeah, the overall SpaceX suits are very clean, obviously. I mean, they look great.
The crew has loosened up their seat
and
belts.
For crew awareness, there will be some additional tank venting here as we get back down to nominal tank pressures.
So what we're seeing here, so this is Kirill Peskov from Roscosmos. We have Nicole Iyer, who is the pilot for this mission, NASA, American. We have Anna McLean, who is the commander of this mission, NASA, American. And then we have Takuya Onishi, if I'm pronouncing that right, Japanese, JAXA, Japanese Space Agency. So next up, crew
From
egress.
Your time in the astronaut corps, what are some stories that you've heard from astronauts that have, spent time?
Oh, look at that tower in the background, though, chat. That's wild. They already have the catch arms integrated. This is for Starship.
Well, there's certainly a lot of stories. I mean, there were some.
It's crazy how quickly they went that going.
Times. I mean, over and over again. You have different launch windows for different vehicles too. Sometimes it's an instantaneous window. Sometimes you have a prolonged period. So maybe you might be able to resolve a problem in time. But, in some ways it could actually make the crew a little bit more relaxed because they've already done all of their final
What a waste of time. Let them fly.
All of those, all that last minute work, the last minute email, the last minute message that you wanted to send a friend.
Yeah, just hit the go
button.
button.
All of that out of the way. And hopefully that will give them a chance tomorrow to really just be able to
hopefully
relax
it's only a
and
24-hour
and maybe just
turnaround.
think a little bit more, philosophize a little bit more, be ready for that next attempt without all of those little annoying must-do task list type things. So we'll try to put a positive light on it and think about how maybe for their psychological state and getting ready for the next opportunity, it would actually make things a little bit more relaxing and a little bit more routine. Like you said, they've gone through it all. Of course, they had gone through most of those, pretty much all of those steps except for the propellant loading in the dry dress previously. So they'd been through it at least once. But when you're not training for the real deal, it always feels a little bit different. So I think they'll be even more psychologically, mentally prepared for the next opportunity that they'll have, whether that's tomorrow or subsequent day.
If you're just joining us, you're watching launch coverage of NASA and SpaceX's Crew-10 mission that was scrubbed.
One thing they haven't actually said yet, which I'm interested in, is that because this scrubs tonight, I wonder what that does for Crew-9 return. Because Crew-9 return is supposed to happen March 16th. They're supposed to basically be relieved by Crew-10. So if it's a 3 to 4 day overlap between Crew-9, between Crew-10 arrival and Crew-9 leaving, I wonder if this pushes that all back and it'll still be 4 days, or if they go tomorrow, will they then cut it down to 3 days? I don't know.
Takuya Onishi.
Do scrubs happen a lot during my day job? No. Luckily, no. We don't have to worry about scrubs.
Of course, they're
we're like space system component manufacturing.
Perfect. It certainly did its part.
So no scrubs really impact me. Luckily.
Where the launch weather officer came over the net and said, "We're clear, blue, and 22." A phrase that means, clear skies, blue skies, beautiful weather, and you can see for 22 miles. And you literally can. That is the visibility today. It was setting up to be a perfect, not only launch
well, don't keep kicking us while we're down, man.
But as is often happens in the business, everything.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely affect it, but I just wonder how.
And so,
will it just get pushed back a day, or however long it takes for them to launch, or will it move their timeline back by more than a week? Because for return, right, they have to also worry about weather for the return. So if they were scheduled, if weather was supposed to be good for March 16th return, but then now the weather looks like it's going to be a week of bad weather, then, that really is a bummer.
Just having passed through sunset, I believe we had a sunset. Are we there yet? No, we're close. Almost sunset as we orbit the launch
Look at
tower
that!
there.
Look at that tower, though. That's crazy that they integrated that so quickly.
Starship launch tower that you can see there, marked by its chopstick arms at the bottom. In the background, you can see Launch Complex 39A.
No scripts from your Python scripts. That's true.
The Falcon
That's true,
9
AKA.
rocket and spacecraft, with our crew, are still sitting inside, awaiting to be egressed from the capsule. And way off in the distance, the vehicle assembly building.
Nice.
You know, it's good food for thought here as I contemplate what I would do in this situation and think about a potential future space
the moon.
flight. I think it's probably a good idea
It's
to
the
have
moon
some
chat.
contingency plans, personal ones, right, about what's going to be different and what you're going to do over those next 24 hours or however long it will be. I didn't actually speak to Anne about that. I wonder if she and her crew had anything in mind, you know, anything planned, because
I assume
the way things usually work, if you have
Teslas with the pad ninjas and everything are at the pad now. It shouldn't be that long of a drive, but we haven't seen them cut to that view yet.
talk to her and
I didn't see
find out
them.
if they had
Didn't notice them in
planned
the
and
other
what they
view, the
decided
orbiting
to
view.
do to make use of that interim.
The full moon. That's
I
right.
can see some astronauts possibly thinking that might be bad luck if you make a plan for a scrub.
You never know. I mean, if you have a plan, then you won't have to use it.
There you go. It's good to plan. It's also good for the astronauts to have a little downtime as well. Launch and then the work that happens.
They're on their
at the
iPads.
International Space Station, as I've heard it told, is very intense at times.
Yeah, the training period, especially in the few months before launch, is pretty intense. There's a lot of international
They're
travel
playing
as well,
Hill
so you're
Climb
pretty
Racer, I
much
bet.
always jet lagged. And it's pretty
Or maybe
intense. You know, I
Jetpack
think
Joyride?
for a lot of
Anybody?
the training that we do as astronauts, we talked about for these space station missions, we're typically training 1.5 to 2 years in advance. In the beginning, it's usually not as engaging, not as time consuming, not as much travel, but really things get progressively busier, unfortunately, even though you'd personally want it the other way around. You know, if you think about it, everybody wants to have their training and their exposure as close to the flight as possible. So those final months do get quite
Blast,
busy.
really? That's funny.
For Anne's crew, there was sort of an interesting lead up.
I know of it. I didn't think it was that popular.
Of course,
That's
originally
funny.
they were supposed to launch in February, and they were really pretty exhausted. You know, they had a lot of travel, a lot of things
look at
going
that.
on.
It's a
but
picture
then
of Dragon
suddenly
from
they
the
had this
ISS.
delay, and they were waiting, and
It's their
then
background.
they had this kind of built-in rest period, kind of similar that we're talking about with a scrub, where I think it actually was good for their crew because they had enough downtime to really recover. I mean, we always, as astronauts, want to be launching a well-rested crew, a well-mentally prepared crew to get to the very busy lifestyle that we have on board the space station, and just all the.
You know,
the
I would totally
psychology
just break
involved
out
with
into
keeping your
like
family and friends
a
back
rock,
home,
paper,
too.
scissors
So I
tournament
think it was nice
while they're
Anne's
waiting.
crew had that.
Because all of a sudden you just
And
see
again,
people
maybe
flashing.
they'll have that now with the scrub, a little bit of extra time together to kind of contemplate and prepare for their mission.
Good tournament
delay
going.
that you mentioned from February.
That's
to
5 out of
March,
7. Go.
Of course, brought about by the decision to switch.
The camaraderie is
capsules,
enduring 100%. Yeah. I mean, these people have been training for this mission for more than a year now.
Endurance, reliable one with 3 previous crew missions under its belt: Crew 3, Crew 5,
And they've been in
Crew 7.
quarantine together for I don't know how
They
long.
made that switch, though. They needed to do some more data analysis on.
Nice, nice turkey. Heck yeah.
spacecraft in short order, and it takes time.
That's awesome.
Because of the amount of data that the commercial crew program has to go over in order to make sure that everything is right.
Where are the pad ninjas? My goodness. They're taking their sweet time.
Astronauts on it.
They have to, grapple up the side of the tower.
Oh, it's a nice view of the moon. You can see behind the launch towers there as well.
See it. We're pretty close to a full moon. We've got sunset in just a few minutes.
Yeah, this would have definitely been a really nice twilight shot. Hopefully the 24-hour turnaround time. Hopefully it will be just a 24-hour turnaround time. Haven't heard any updates on that. They lost the key to the elevator. Oof. Bummer. Yeah, they really are going to have to grapple up.
Dragon SpaceX, just an update. The closeout team is waiting. They have arrived at the pad, but is waiting for a go to enter the pad to come get you out of the vehicle. But I'll give you updates as they're proceeding to the base of the tower.
Still waiting on the, I guess, the pressure to come down or something.
SpaceX Dragon copy. Thank you.
So they've arrived. They're just not allowed to enter the pad vicinity yet.
From SpaceX to the crew inside the Endurance
And
spacecraft.
for Crew-10, there's going to be some loud venting from the base of the rocket.
What's the reason for the scrub? They had a ground system hydraulic issue, Jersey. That's all we know. A hydraulic system on the ground side apparently is not responding how they want it to.
Everything needs to be safed first before you allow people to go into the launch area. So these are standard precautions.
There's pretty much sunset right there.
Before the closeout crew goes in. Props to our Kennedy Space Center flight operations.
Unfortunate, yeah, 100%. Yeah, they got down all the way to about T-minus 40 minutes when they were supposed to give a go, no-go for propellant loading, and that was basically their final decision maker on whether or not they could fix the issue to continue, and they couldn't fix the issue before then, so they were no-go for prop load and therefore no-go for basically the launch. So
there, and with an update on the scrub.
Yep, here we go. Let's see. Your life.
Thanks, Daryl. Not what we were expecting today, but the good news is that the vehicle, the crew are all healthy, and this is standard procedure, right? We heard. We're hearing some comms. We heard the comms that the closeout team is going to make their way back to on the crew access arm to the White Room and help the crew egress the vehicle.
Oh, very good. So they got to go ahead.
They've done this before. They did this through dry dress rehearsal
that's
already when
good.
they had to go through the entire process, get into the seats, get strapped in, and then they unbuckled and egress the Dragon spacecraft already. So this is just almost like another rehearsal for them. And again, we didn't load propellant, so that does make the egress a little bit easier.
You gotta do it long ways, man.
Yeah, and you can see Crew-10 there on your screen. They look pretty happy, all smiles on their faces. Taking some selfies, it looks like, or some photos.
With their pads there.
Instagram.
Yeah, so I guess killing the time a little bit.
Do they have instant uplink to Instagram?
And
is Starlink already connected there?
Quarantine facility where they've been for the last about a week now. I think they arrived on March 7th to Florida. So the process is, it takes a little bit. There's lots of people and moving parts involved to get the crew out of the capsule, get everything safed, and then drive back and get back to their location. Again, we'll continue to stand by and wait and see when we might be able to have our next launch opportunity. There's several opportunities available this week. Again, we had that scrub due to a hydraulic ground issue with the clamp arm on the transporter
it was the clamp.
erector.
Yeah.
So the teams will continue to look into that, do some more data and analysis, and see
but there's a clamp, right? Those clamps that go around the second stage.
With that
Apparently, there's an issue where they wouldn't open. I guess.
We'll continue to share more about those next launch opportunities once they're available. We'll, on the NASA side, provide updates.
Do they spend more time in the capsule if launch succeeds or gets canceled? Succeeds, yeah. Because their flight time to the ISS is 13 hours, and they've only been in there for 3 hours right now. 2 hours, actually.
There on your screen, you can see the cars that will transport the crew back.
They gotta
after they
sling the grapple up there and start
teams are
grappling up the side.
And
they're not allowed to use the elevator.
Team waiting for the elevator that will take them.
No, they're not allowed.
All the way up to that crew access.
One time, chat, just one time. I want to see them rappel up the side, like ninjas should.
Egress into the vehicle. It will be the same team to help them egress.
And there you can see them making their way up. And they did call the scrub right before that crew access arm normally would have swung out of the way. So we didn't have to wait for that to swing back. So it does speed up the process a little bit. And that was, I think, very intentional
Make
to
them
make
take
a
the
decision at
stairs.
that point.
Yeah,
That would be a
exactly.
bummer.
We have a lot of
I think they had to
checkpoints
do that one
through
time,
the
didn't they?
countdown,
After a hurricane damaged the
all
elevators.
purposefully to make sure that we are making sure that every step of the process we are good before we proceed.
I don't mean like during a
And
launch.
again,
I just mean like,
just like Anna was
I
saying,
thought there was something that happened.
this is exactly why we do that.
Why ninja suits? I don't know, because SpaceX. SpaceX is all about the aesthetics. And, you know, quite frankly, this, if they weren't in this, they would be in the, what NASA used to use, which is like the all white, like mask, you know, like it would basically be these suits, but all white. But SpaceX being SpaceX and black is their primary logo color and whatnot, their branding, they went with black and they call them pad ninjas because of it. Just.
And again, Crew-10 is the 10th rotational mission for SpaceX carrying crew to the International Space Station. Their crew currently inside Dragon that will egress soon is,
you know, I haven't said it or brought it
NASA
up because,
so NASA astronaut
like, where's Boeing in all this, man?
as well as a
Does
JAXA
Boeing
astronaut
does Boeing view these live streams and hears NASA say, yeah, this is the 10th return mission or rotation mission from SpaceX, and Boeing's just like, oh my God.
the crew off the pad and into orbit. They will have a long duration mission at the International Space Station conducting science and research activities.
It's really great to see the crew in good spirits. You know, they train for this and, you know, spend a lot of hours working through each one of these procedures, and you can see the closeout team making their way across the crew access arm there over to the White Room. But yeah, this is all part of procedure, and it's really great to see.
Yeah, so now basically all they have to do left is open up the hatch. They're going to take off, but they're going to re-rotate the chairs. They're going to take off the, they've already rotated the chairs. They're going to take off the foot rests on the bottom, and then they'll be able to slide out and egress that way. What's the state of Boeing with their ship nowadays? Honestly, haven't heard a thing about it, whatever. I haven't. As far as I know, from what they've been saying, they're still committed to their space customers, and NASA's their space customer, but in terms of specifically Starliner and where Starliner sits, I haven't heard a thing. But anyways, chat, I think that might just bring us to a good stopping point for the stream for now. I do plan on streaming here in a little bit, but I want to grab some dinner. I was hoping that we would have a launch and we would just carry it through, but this seems like a pretty good stopping point since it is a scrub. So probably what's going to happen is I'm going to go ahead and shut down the stream. All they have to do is, you know, basically ingress them out. And then from there, we'll kick it back up later in about an hour and play some Kerbal Space Program, probably is what's going to happen. So until then, chat, probably be back in like a couple of hours, maybe around 7:30, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, not Eastern, Mountain Time. And until then, I guess we'll call it there. So thanks for hanging out. We'll cover SpaceX, I guess, tomorrow if there's a turnaround time, because they scrubbed today. So hopefully it's a 24-hour turnaround. If not, then we'll cover SpaceX Crew-10 launch whenever SpaceX decides it's go. But yeah, until then, chat, we'll catch you guys on the next time.